Lab is my word for a GitHub repo. It's a GitHub repo that contains you know, exploration and notes. Okay, so in my case, these are all things. It's like it has too much stuff to fit into a Zettelkasten, right? Into a Zettel. You have to read about that if you don't know what that is. It has value on its own. So that means people might want to fork. It has it's a versioned. It's versioned, right? So versioned version notes and code combined, so that I can come back and see what happened and what changed. Enables tracking history of learning and changes. So that's why I do it that way, and it helps to alleviate problems of bad memory, because I have a bad memory. And when you're talking about so it gives a sense of, when you're talking about something as complex as this, of control over highly complicated things. So that's another main reason. So that's what a learning lab is. So what does a learning lab look like? So here's a learning lab that I have started for this. You can go check it out just as an example. So artifacts rob/lab-kubernetes-0 to Jupyter Hub. I choose to prefix my repos this way because I have a lot of them, and some of them are more built than others. I use consistent prefix. So my prefix is lab. And then, for example, I do lab-kubernetes because that's an entire category. Because you can't really cluster, you can't group things together like you can with GitLab. One of the things I really miss from GitLab after having gone back to GitHub is that you can't actually group together everything. So you can put a consistent prefix on there, and I have a bunch of them, so you can just search for everything that begins with the word lab, or you can even just tab complete that if you're doing it from your command line, and you can go find those kinds of things. So that's just the convention I've been following for this. It's just notes. It's just interactive coded notes. I used to do like a code book, and that kind of work has all gone into either my Zettelkasten, which is a bunch of snippets and explanations and tips and stuff like that. In fact, I just did one of those about, if I have like, so I just barely did one to remove a Git submodule, right? So sometimes like I'll put code that has to be, so let's see, edit submodule. So sometimes I'll do this kind of thing, which is largely just lifted from, in that case, Stack Exchange, which is rare. One of the reasons that I still do a replica of a Stack Exchange entry is because usually it's like the fourth one down that's the true one. So I'll do the work to establish which one's true, and then I'll put the code in there. So this is the kind of tips and tricks and stuff that'll land in my Zettelkasten that is not really going to go into a lab, and the lab is all very specific to a particular task and scenario. So I'm going to put that down here too. I didn't make any changes to it, so that's fine. So we're going to say has specific requirements, goal, I should say, goal or scenario. So it's kind of like an escape room in that sense, like we talked about, multi-user distributed learning or MUDs for learning. It's kind of the same thing, but it doesn't have any of that sort of rhetorical incentive to do it. It's more, hey, this is a project you're being asked to do. Has specific goal or scenario in mind. In my case, it's going to, the one I'm working on here is going to be getting Jupyter Hub deployed into our Kubernetes clusters with the ability to customize it. So that would be a lab, and then I can write down all that work and capture it as I'm doing it. Yeah, this piece of software, the container. Yeah, I don't particularly like Jupyter Hub myself. I've never used Jupyter, and I'm being charged with putting it out there. So that's what a learning lab is. A learning lab, at the end of the day, is just a GitHub repo where I keep track of all the work related to a specific large project task, and like installing Jupyter Hub and Kubernetes. And there's lots of little moving pieces and parts and tips and tricks and fails and problems and gotchas and all that stuff. And I want to put it all in one place so that I have a version history of the changes, and I can go back and read my logs. So I actually include a log.md file. If you know me, that would normally go in a separate directory. But so I include a chronological log.md file so I can kind of follow along on my work. This is the kind of the same old school idea of documenting research. Like somebody would, I don't know, 2,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Captain Nemo is like reading from his captain's log about all the things he did, right? Or researchers are writing their discoveries. Frankenstein is writing about everything he's trying every day. It's a part of RWX method. So the RWX method, of course, read and research, write about it, and then, explore, experiment, and share all of that. So part of the RWX method. So that's what a learning lab is. I think I spent under 10 minutes on that, so I don't feel any guilt at all sharing that with you, and then that'll go into a video. And